Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CTCL Virtual Days College Fair. Thank you so much for joining us. You're here for a presentation from Agnes Scott College. I will just be here facilitating the beginning, but thank you for joining us. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button to ask questions of our panelists at any time. So do take note. You just click on the Q&A button and it will allow you to ask any questions. Your microphone and camera are turned off so the panelists can't see or hear you. So that Q&A function is really the best way for you to interact with the panelists. Also, this is just one of many different sessions happening. So be sure to sign up for additional sessions as part of this CTCL Virtual Days series. Also, this presentation is being recorded and will be available in about a week, as are all of the other presentations. So come back, revisit this, or check out some that you've missed. Same website where you registered is where you'll find that. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters from Agnes Scott. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Josh. Very much appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and share our screen. Thank you all for joining us on this Saturday afternoon. I know that there's a lot of things that you could be doing to spend your weekend, so we're very excited that you chose to spend it learning a little bit more about Agnes Scott. I want to go ahead and introduce myself and my colleagues really quickly. My name is Rachel West. I'm an Associate Director of Admission here at Agnes Scott. And I am excited to talk to you about what Agnes Scott has to offer you as a college today. And then I'd like to introduce my fellow admission counselor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anna Platt. I'm the Assistant Director of Admission and Campus Visit Coordinator at Agnes Scott College. I'm so excited you guys are joining us today. And we're also joined by one of our current students.
Hi everyone, my name is Nika Jones. I am a junior at Agnes Scott, majoring in political science and minoring in business, and I am also originally from Chicago, Illinois.
Excellent, thank you, Nika. So we are going to get started by talking about sort of the basics of Agnes Scott College. And what I want to tell you is we cannot tell you, unfortunately, everything we would like to tell you in the 45 minutes that we have together. So we are going to spend some time really focusing on the things that make Agnes Scott unique among colleges in general, but also among the other colleges that change lives schools that you may be going to presentations for this weekend. So we're going to get started just by talking about who we are and what our students look like. So we are a pretty small campus, like many in the Colleges That Change Lives group. However, I think we're on the smaller side. So we have 1,081 students in our undergraduate student body. We also have a relatively small graduate school population as well as a post-baccalaureate school population. I like to say that even though those students are a small group, they are a mighty group, especially in terms of the incredible diversity available on campus. So geographically, our students come from 42 states and 17 countries. We have no racial or ethnic majority on our campus. About 63% of our students identify as BIPOC. And then about a third of our students are first-generation college students or the first students in their family to go to college. We also are a women's college, but we have a strong sense of gender identity diversity. So you can see our statement up on the screen. We admit students who identify as female, transgender, agender, gender fluid, or non-binary. So that is very important to us. So a little bit more about us and where we are. We are located in Decatur, Georgia. If you don't know where Decatur is, we are located about a 10-minute car ride outside of city center of Atlanta, Georgia. So right in the heart of Atlanta, very close to the city. We're going to talk a little bit more about Weshel in just a moment. We are a women's college, as I mentioned, an inclusive women's college. We are liberal arts curriculum, but we're known for our summit experience, which we're going to talk a little bit more about shortly. And then if you're interested in athletics, we are NCAA Division III athletics with 6 sports: basketball, cross country, tennis, softball, volleyball, and soccer. So if you're interested in any, let us know. We're happy to talk about those as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna and Nika to talk a little bit more about student life.
Thank you, Rachel. So we wish that we could show all of you campus in real life, but since we cannot right now, I want to give you some overview of our physical spaces. So we are a residential campus, so the majority of our students live in our residence halls. Nika, our current student on this webinar today, is actually one of our resident assistants. So Nika, can you tell us a little bit about residence life at Agnes Scott?
Yes, so since Agnes Scott is a residential campus, residents living on campus is very important to your Agnes Scott experience. For our first year students, we have 2 freshmen only dorms, so Winship and Walters halls, and you have 2 residential assistants on each floor, which is very important because not only do we help promote and enforce safety regulations and policies, but we're also it's very important to us to make sure that community is the biggest impact and experience that you see at Agnes Scott. So we are required to have events such as vision board parties. We can go out into the Decatur area together. So just making sure that we're putting on events for you to meet people in your hall, but also get acquainted to Agnes Scott. And so even beyond your dorm room experience, it's very important that we are sources of information to help guide you to different departments on campus that you may need during your first year and even your entire experience at Agnes Scott.
Definitely. Thank you, Nika. So we have other various buildings on campus, such as academic buildings, dining facilities. We have a wellness center and several athletics facilities for our athletes and also our students as well. One of my favorite things about campus is that we also have an observatory on campus. I think that's pretty unique for a small college. So one day, hopefully in the near future, we can invite you to see all of these spaces in person. But for right now, I just want to go over that we have these as spaces on our campus. So one thing that is very important to Agnes Scott is our traditions. So we have several strong traditions at Agnes Scott, and they really are highlights of our community. One of those is Pancake Jam. That is a time before each exam period that staff and faculty get together in the dining hall and cook breakfast for our students. We have the Black Ring Mafia, which I think Nika is going to tell us more about. Nika, go ahead.
Yes, so the Black Ring Mafia is very important to Agnes Scott. When you first come in, that is something that you're expecting to join and be a part of just because of its prominence really across the world. So I actually joined the Black Ring Mafia this past spring, so my sophomore year at around February of 2020. And it was an absolutely amazing experience because you're joining a community of alums who are in various career fields who are doing amazing things. And for me, it's a way to really find one another. So I had an interesting experience when I was interning at the city of Atlanta, where I actually met an Agnes Scott alum as I was going to lunch, and I looked at her hand and saw the Black Ring. And so it provided me an opportunity to start a conversation with someone that little did I know at the time would become a mentor in my field. So the Black Ring is definitely something that people look forward to.
Definitely. I did not attend.
Nika, can you describe a little bit?
Say that one more time.
I was just gonna say, Nika, can you describe a little bit how you get the ring?
Yes.
And how that works?
Yes, so it's an entire ceremony that we have in February where all your class, so you're known by like a class color. So my class color is red. So the red class of 2022, we all came together and had a formal ceremony in Gaines, which is our auditorium. And really, we had a speaker and family and friends come and support because they even learn of the importance of this tradition. And so it's an amazing experience, and you all take pictures with each other, signifying that you've now joined this community that you've been waiting so long to be a part of.
Definitely. Thank you, Nika, for explaining that. I did not attend Agnes Scott, and I'm very jealous of the ring. I want one so badly. So I think it's a very awesome tradition that we have. Another way that students get involved is through many clubs and organizations that we have on campus, and then also taking advantage of our location. So Rachel mentioned that we're located in Decatur, Georgia. Our campus is about a 5-minute walk from downtown Decatur. And downtown Decatur has a town square, and it's filled with many restaurants, coffee shops, some of our favorite places. And it also has a public transportation system. So MARTA is Atlanta's public transportation system that goes all over the Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, and the airport as well. So our students definitely utilize that transportation system. Another wonderful aspect of our location is our campus bookstore, Karis Books and More, which is the oldest feminist bookstore in the South. So our location is actually one of my favorite things about Agnes Scott. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel to talk a little bit more about the classroom experience.
Yeah, so thank you. I think we always start with the student life experience because being a part of the community at Agnes Scott is such an important piece of who we are. But the classroom experience is obviously also important. So when you're sitting in an Agnes Scott classroom, the thing that you need to keep in mind is they're going to be relatively small classes. So we have a 10-to-1 student to faculty ratio and an average class size of 16. So that means if you're sitting in maybe a really popular class like a Biology 101, you're looking around at most maybe 20, 21 other students. But when you're sitting in a class that's maybe for your major, you're probably looking around at less than 10 students. So it's a really small, welcome environment that's generally discussion-based and is really focused on student-centered teaching. So the student-centered teaching really means that you get to know your professor really well, and the teaching is focused on making sure that you are successful. I mentioned earlier that we are a diverse campus in all possible ways. That also lends itself to our classroom environment. So I think it's really important that when you're learning from others with diverse backgrounds and perspectives, because that is going to broaden your own perspectives academically and socially. And then that rich community that we were talking about as a part of student life also carries over into the classroom setting where you're really a community of people all going towards the same academic goals. So that is very important to us. One of the other things that, we talked about being a women's college earlier, and it's a really interesting environment to choose to study in, right? You're making the choice that you want to be at an inclusive women's college. So I actually want to ask Nika, as the person who's made that choice most recently here, Nika, why did you choose to come to a women's-centered environment, and what about a women's college appeals to you both then and now?
Right. So fortunately, during my college search process, I was looking at women's colleges, and I knew that that was a possibility. But then I also began to look at people around me who attended women's colleges all across the nation, and I saw that they were trailblazers in their specific fields. So whether it was academia, whether it was, in the sciences, whatever they were doing, they were top notch. They were well prepared, well equipped, and they were breaking glass ceilings. And so I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. Wherever I decided to go, I wanted to make sure that I was bringing value to whatever table, that I was able to speak up, and that I was able to include people who were around me. So I knew that going to a women's college, based on what I had seen at the time when I was in high school, and then going through my Agnes Scott experience, when we look at people who have graduated from Agnes Scott, when we even look at current students and see what they're doing in the political landscape, in academics, whatever they're doing, they're always doing something that is phenomenal. It always encourages me to continue pushing forward beyond what I may be doing in the present, and always looking for greater things to contribute to. And so then and now, I've been inspired to continue to bring something special to every table that I'm able to sit at.
That's an amazing answer, Nika. Thank you so much. On this slide, you'll actually see one of the things we think is important, since you're not on our campus, is seeing some of the faces of our students and our student leaders. So you can see some of those throughout our presentation. If you look carefully, you might see someone you recognize, maybe just talked as one of our students on the slide. So it's always one of my favorite things is seeing the faces of students who are living out the experience that Nika was talking about. So one of the other things I always like to share about Agnes Scott is our mission. So the mission of Agnes Scott College is to educate women to think deeply, live honorably, and engage the intellectual and social challenges of their times. The reason why I like to share this is kind of twofold. So number one, I think it's really indicative of who we are in the past and present. So Agnes Scott was founded to be a place to educate people who didn't have access to education. At the time, women primarily in the South. And that continues to be a place where underrepresented and marginalized voices are centered and brought to the front. That is what we are about. The other reason why I like to bring it up is that last piece, the intellectual and social challenges of our times. We are in challenging times right now, as I'm sure you know, between global pandemics and situations of racial injustice. These are times that our students are really having to face those challenges, and they're facing them academically and socially, but they're all facing them as a community together. One of the ways that we really equip students to do that is through what we call our SUMMIT experience. This is one of the things that makes Agnes Scott really unique, and I'm going to turn it over to Anna to explain a little bit about SUMMIT.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So as Rachel just gave you a little bit of context surrounding that mission statement, and she mentioned that the way that we have our students actually live out this mission statement is SUMMIT. So SUMMIT is our signature Agnes Scott experience that is unique throughout a student's 4 years. And we're going to go into kind of individual experiences a little bit later, but basically SUMMIT as a whole gives students real-world hands-on opportunities that prepare them for a lifetime of professional success, engaging those intellectual and social challenges, and social and intellectual mobility. So the way that we carry SUMMIT out is through 3 core areas, and those core areas are global learning, leadership development, and professional success. And like I said, we're going to dive deeper into each of these in just a moment, but no matter what you end up studying, no matter what your major is or the minors that you add on, those 3 areas are going to be infused into all of your experiences at Agnes Scott. So speaking of those kind of specific interests that you might have, at the undergraduate level, we offer 34 majors and 32 minors for you to choose from, as well as 3 dual degree programs that you can choose from if you're interested specifically in computer science or nursing with Emory or engineering with Georgia Tech, and as well as 6 graduate programs. So if you want to, continue on and do your graduate master's degree or certification at Agnes Scott, you can do that as well in 6 specific areas. So these 3 core areas, global learning, leadership development, and professional success, really integrate into your interests through signature experiences that are part of SUMMIT. And these signature experiences are designed to reach students no matter what their academic passions are. So they allow you to explore different academic paths to help you figure out which path is right for you. So Rachel and Nika are going to highlight a few of those signature experiences for you.
Yeah, and before we get started on that, I just want to stress one thing that Anna said earlier. One of the great things about SUMMIT is these are experiences that every student has. So I think frequently some of these experiences are maybe only for top students or for students who seek them out, but these are things that every single student at Agnes Scott will do during their time at Agnes Scott. So the very first thing that students do really when they arrive on our campus is they take part in the first part of Legacy. So Legacy is this 2-part immersion experience that students do as a part of orientation before classes start, and then right before the spring semester starts in their very first year. And it's really a start to our leadership curriculum where students are talking about what is leadership, what are the leadership strengths I already have, and where do I want to grow? What are things I need to know about leadership in terms of like power and privilege, and what are my biases and that sort of thing. And then in the spring, once you've had a little bit of time to learn more about leadership, you start thinking about your personal and professional goals as a leader and how you want to enact those as you move forward. So that really goes into the first semester of the first year when all of our students take a class called Leadership 101 or Foundations of Leadership. One of the things I personally love about the Leadership 101 courses is that they all teach some of the same skills. They're all going to be focused on strong communication skills, the ability to think critically, strong ability to, go through research and understand data. But you get to do it in a way that is interesting to you. So me personally, I was an English major in college. So the class that is happening right now that is about leadership and gender in young adult fantasy novels and films is right up my alley. Whereas someone who is maybe more interested in pre-medical or a STEM field might be more interested in gender equity and STEM as a way to look at leadership. Nika, what was your Leadership 101 class about?
Yes, so my Leadership 101 class was Leadership in Atlanta. And so the course focused on like Confederate monuments, but my group specifically took the idea and topic of Confederate monuments and looked at how women in politics in Atlanta, in the state of Georgia, and how their positions and how they use their power to kind of influence the political landscape and how they viewed Confederate monuments.
Awesome. And as you might have noticed earlier, that actually feeds really well. Nika was using it as an exploratory option because it's in your first semester. But Nika, you are a political science major. So that ended up feeding really well into what you ended up doing academically, right?
Yes, it did. And it even, I would say, introduced me to the political landscape in Atlanta, because coming straight from Chicago, I did not really know a lot. And so a lot about the Atlanta, it's a new political system compared to how we do things in Chicago. And so it actually prepared me to work for the city of Atlanta. Little did I know at the time.
Excellent. So that Leadership 101 class actually has sort of a companion in the spring semester when we really start to introduce students to the ideas of global learning. So in our Global 102 Journeys classes, students are really focused on the ideas of global patterns and systems that shape all of our lives. I think now more than ever, we're particularly aware of global patterns and systems that shape our lives, particularly because we can have this conversation. We have students that are international students who might be watching us right now. So we're aware of the ways in which those affect us. But these are really opportunities for students to learn about a specific topic related to a location, and then to explore that location through a 7 to 9 day journeys trip that happen in March. Now, I want to be very transparent about where we are. So in the past, those trips were primarily international trips. There were a few domestic trips, but they were primarily trips to international locations. Obviously, right now, other countries are not necessarily letting us visit, and there are also health reasons why you might not go to visit. So for this year, we're really focusing on domestic locations with virtual connections to our global locations. And then eventually, when it's safe to do so, we'll return to international locations. So Nika, when she talks about her international experience, that will make sense. But for this year, our students are really being able to focus on things like astronomy by visiting coastal Florida with connections to Puerto Rico, or they're studying Islamic art and architecture in NYC with virtual connections in Morocco. So Nika, what kind of global journeys experience did you have?
Yes, so I actually went to Costa Rica for my trip my first year, and it focused on globalization in the banana production industry. And so at the time, I was like, what does that have to do with everyday life? But when we went to Costa Rica, we visited about 8 different cities. And in those cities, we had the chance to visit really small communities that made cacao plants. And so with your chocolate, you saw, okay, little did we know some of our chocolate is coming from Costa Rica. Or your bananas, we had the opportunity to visit a university called Earth University, where I'm still keeping in touch with students who are there to this day, who are helping to make sure that the bananas that are coming from over there are reaching us here safely. And so that entire class just showed me how connected the United States is to other countries and how we impact each other in our exchanges.
Yeah, and that's really the whole goal of the Journeys experience, right? And one of the other goals of the experience is that we wanted to remove the barriers to an experience like study abroad or even study domestically. Students do not pay anything for these trips. They're funded entirely through donors. So the only thing students have to pay for is their passport if they don't already have one and they're traveling internationally. So it's a great opportunity for students. We do have lots of other study abroad opportunities after the first year, but this is something that every single student will experience. So now I'm going to turn it over to Anna to talk a little bit more about the professional experiences that students have through Summit.
Definitely. Thanks, Rachel. So you may be wondering, now that you've heard about that leadership experience and that global experiences, how those things lead you to your future career. So an important part of that professional exploration is having the opportunity to test out those academic experiences in a work environment. So another signature experience that you will have at Agnes Scott is something called SCALE. So SCALE is the Sophomore Class Atlanta Leadership Experience. So each year, all of our sophomores will take part in a week-long externship somewhere in the Atlanta area. And that helps them really figure out, what leadership characteristics that they've built throughout that legacy and leadership class, and then taking those leadership skills and implementing them into a real work environment. So SCALE is a mixture of on-campus kind of reflection and hands-on work experience at a company or nonprofit organization in the Atlanta area. We also have other opportunities for students to have that professional exploration, including internships and research. So about 70% of Scotties complete at least one or more internship during their 4 years, and many students complete 2 or more. Nika, I know you've had some amazing internships in the Atlanta area and also in Chicago. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your internship experience?
Yes, so my first year, so the summer before my sophomore year, I had the opportunity to work for the Atlanta City Council. And then spring, which was this past, so like January to about March before the pandemic, I had an internship at the Georgia State Capitol. And then this past summer, I came home to Chicago and had the chance to work for the city of Chicago. It's very comparable to the Atlanta City Council, so really the city of Chicago, our council. And then next summer, I have already secured an internship with Deloitte and their government and public services consulting practice.
Awesome. You're amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, like Nika said, she had one of those internships in Atlanta. So the benefit of being so close to a huge city is that there are so many different companies and hospitals and nonprofit organizations in just our backyard that students can participate in. So with SCALE, we partner with about 20 to 30 different organizations, some of which you can see on your screen right now. So examples of this are the Atlanta Dream, which is our women's basketball team, the Atlanta Birth Center, Zoo Atlanta, AT&T, and many, many more. So not only are students, participating at SCALE, but they're also getting internships in these areas. And then of course, like Nika said, in their hometowns or outside of Atlanta as well. So now that you have an idea of, all of those signature experiences and that professional success that we offer students, I want to talk a little bit about how we support students in finding their path. So in general, Agnes Scott is a rigorous learning environment, and we do challenge our students, but we also want to support them in those intellectual and social challenges. And we do that through an academic support system, and we really invest in our students. So every single student that is at Agnes Scott will receive a Summit advisor prior to stepping foot on campus their first year. So their Summit advisor will help them talk through their academic interests and goals to figure out their best first year schedule, and they'll be with them throughout their entire 4 years to mentor them through their academic journey. Also, our students will have access to peer advising their first semester. So these peer advisors are upper class students who have already gone through that high school to college transition that are there to help our new first years go through that transition as well. Also, when you declare your major at the end of your second year, you're going to add on a faculty mentor to your advising support system. Nika, I know that you have a great relationship with your faculty mentor. Can you talk a bit about, how you chose that person and your relationship with them?
Yes, so my faculty mentor, she was very welcoming, just welcoming. And I would even say the same thing for literally every single person that you see on your screen, which I've had the chance to come in contact with during my Agnes Scott experience. But my faculty mentor is actually someone in the Spanish department. And she was very instrumental because when I first came into Agnes, I thought that I wanted to be a Spanish major. And so even though I decided to go the political science route, she has still been very instrumental in helping to make sure that I'm securing internships, that I'm as competitive as possible through my cover letters, my resumes, everything that a potential employer would look at, making sure that I'm presenting myself well. And even just as giving words of encouragement, which are very big in your college journey because sometimes you may doubt yourself and your abilities. My faculty mentor, my summit advisor, my peer advisor, and even my career communities have been really essential, and they've been the foundation that I've been able to jump off of and reach for the stars ultimately.
Awesome. So you mentioned career communities, which are actually new to Agnes Scott this year, and they're made up of current students, alumni, and they're led by a career coach. So this is something that students can choose to participate in, and they are kind of themed. So they have career communities on STEM, they have nonprofit themed career communities. So you can choose one or you can choose multiple career communities. This is how students really help figure out what they want to do after Agnes Scott. So definitely a lot of support that we give our students, and we want to make sure that they are, on the path that is right for them for life after graduation. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel because by now I know you guys are super excited about Agnes Scott and you want to learn all about how to apply.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. So one thing that I do want to say is, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, we just can't share everything there is to know about Agnes Scott in this 45 minutes. We weren't able to share, things about specific majors or really digging into student support services or things like that. So one thing I want to encourage before we start talking about applications is that you join us for a different kind of visit in some way. We have daily virtual visits. We have an open house coming up early in November where we have student and faculty panels. We have almost weekly faculty chats where you can talk to professors in the majors that you might be interested in. And we have a whole collection of videos up on our YouTube from workshops that we've done on things like essays and financial aid and scholarships. So I'd really like to encourage you, if Agnes Scott is something that you think you're interested in, and maybe we weren't able to talk about the thing that's specifically interesting to you, get in touch with us, let us know. We will figure out a way to make sure your questions are answered and that you're able to interact with members of our Agnes Scott community. That is really important to us. So now that I've said that, let's talk a little bit about if you decide that Agnes Scott is the place for you, how do you get here? So the first thing you need to know, we're a Common Application exclusive school. We only use the Common App. We have no application fee for our domestic students. And we use all of the normal things that you would require in an application: transcripts, letter of recommendation. The one thing about us is we are a test optional school. And what that means for us is we are test optional all the way through. You never have to send in test scores. You get to choose on the application whether you do want to send in SAT or ACT scores, or if you want to do what we call an evaluative interview, which is about a 35-minute interview with your admission counselor. I like to think we're relatively non-threatening, so I think that's a good choice. If you interview well, you can do what we call a graded writing sample. So this is actually a paper you've written for an English or history class that has your teacher's literal red pen of grades and comments on it that you submit to us, and then you're done. So you get to choose one of those three: test scores, evaluative interview, or graded writing sample. And like I said, they're seen the same all the way through the admissions and scholarship process. So if you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about what might be the best option for you. Now, when you're applying, we have multiple different deadlines that you can apply for. You can see all of those up on screen. We're very quickly approaching that early decision November 1st deadline. But if you only remember one deadline for us, the one that I want you to remember is the January 15th early action 2 deadline. As long as you apply on or before that deadline, you are considered for all of our academic merit scholarships just by filling out the application. You do not have to fill out anything extra. So make sure you're applying by that January 15th deadline. If you do miss January 15th, we will still try to consider you for merit scholarships, but we cannot guarantee them after the January 15th date. So speaking about those merit scholarships just a little bit more, those generally range from about $18,000 to $25,000 a year. In general, we view scholarships or applications holistically, both for admission and scholarships. So when we're considering you for scholarships, we're looking at every single piece of your application. The one exception to that is our Elizabeth Quiche Trailblazer Scholarship. If you apply to Agnes Scott and you are admitted, and you have a 3.75 GPA on your transcript, and that can be weighted if your high school weights transcript or weights GPAs, then you know that if you're admitted, you'll receive the Elizabeth Quiche Trailblazer Scholarship, which is a $25,000 merit scholarship that can be renewed for all 4 years that you're at Agnes Scott. So all of those are very important to us. I mentioned earlier that we had an open house coming up in November. We also have a very special grant that's available just this year to students that are currently seniors. If you are interested, if you attend our November 7th Great Scott, which is what we call our open house, and you're a senior and you apply to Agnes Scott and are admitted, then you will receive just an additional $1,000 Great Scott grant that you'll have for all 4 years as well. So we really encourage you, if that's something that you're interested in, to come and join us. It's going to be a very fun way to spend a Saturday morning. All right, I feel like we have talked a lot, and but maybe we haven't been able to answer every single question that you have left. So go ahead, if you haven't already, drop your questions in the Q&A box, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. You can ask them for us for admission questions, or to Nika if you want to hear something from a current student's perspective. So Anna, what kinds of questions do we have?
Yeah, so we have a question for Nika. We didn't really talk about, virtual learning a lot. So if you don't know, Agnes Scott is virtual right now. So Nika, what does your day look like as a college student during this virtual semester?
So honestly, this virtual experience has provided me with a lot of flexibility in terms of time. Usually when I'm on campus, we're running from place to place, from building to building, trying to get to the next class. But now, since I'm at home, I have more freedom to kind of choose how I would like to do my classes. So some classes are like, I don't want to pronounce the word wrong, but you can watch the presentation on your own time, and then you can come to a class. They have it maybe one day out of the week if it's typically a 2-day class. You come on Thursday and then you can discuss. So it gives you more free time to kind of create your schedule around that, whether you may be working. I have some friends who are working, who are picking up new hobbies. So like myself, I'm now studying for the LSAT. So it's giving me a lot more freedom and time to do other things that are very important to my academic career in this virtual environment.
Awesome. Thanks. So this question, I think Nika, as a student, you can answer this. Rachel, I'm sure we have favorite things as well. So what is your favorite thing about living in the Decatur or Atlanta area, either one of those?
My favorite thing, I would say, honestly, it's the food. And I think part of that is because there are so many different types of food. I've realized in college that I actually really love sushi, but I would not have had that experience or exposure, I don't believe, if I had not been in the Decatur area. So we have so many different restaurants, so many things to choose from. So I would encourage you, if you ever come to Decatur or the Atlanta area, to step out of your comfort zone and really try those new things that you would not have tasted or seen before.
Definitely. Do you have a favorite? Rachel?
Yeah, so my favorite thing is really the arts scene in Atlanta and Decatur. So Decatur itself is sort of a center of the arts community in Atlanta. I always say summer starts and ends in Decatur with a festival at the beginning of summer, which is the Arts Festival, where they shut the entire city down and they're just showcasing different artists across the whole city. And then it ends on Labor Day with the Decatur Book Festival, which is my favorite day of the year. It's my favorite holiday. It is a whole weekend long, the largest independent book festival in the country, where there are just books you can buy on every corner. There are authors giving talks and signings and all sorts of things. That is personally my favorite thing about living in Decatur and Atlanta.
Definitely. I would echo that as well. I think my favorite thing about living in the Decatur, Atlanta area is like the little neighborhoods. Like there are so many different personalities in Atlanta, and each neighborhood has its own characteristics and personality. And I just love that about Atlanta. Our next question is, what advice would you give to a student going through the college search process right now?
So when I look back at my college experience or application experience, I think at one point I had a certain school in mind. I had a certain geographical location in mind. I had my major planned out. I had everything. I was 4 years into the future in my 18, 17-year-old brain. But I think what I've learned is that everything is going to work out. So wherever you go, it's meant for you to go there. And the experiences that you have are going to build you into the person that you're going to be after those 4 years at your university or college, whichever one you may choose. And so I would really encourage, if you're in your college process, to know that everything is going to work out if you continue to do the best that you can do on your end. And if you have the support of your family, friends, counselors, I guarantee you that you're going to enjoy whatever school you decide to choose.
Great advice.
That is amazing. My personal advice would be, I think when I was doing a college search process, I had of things that was kind of like a checklist that I went through. Does the school have X, Y, and Z? But I think what I've discovered over the years is that one of the most effective ways to look at colleges is to sort of make a list of the things that you value. So that can be sort of across the board. Maybe you value having racial and ethnic diversity on whatever campus you go to. Maybe you value having students who are involved in some of the same kinds of things you're involved in. Like if you're really involved in Model UN, maybe that's something that you value, is having students that are a part of that. Maybe you value having strong activism on campus. Maybe you value having students who study more than they go out. Whatever it is that is a value for you, think about those things that you hold deeply as a part of yourself, and then see how that college fits your values. I think that's a great way to kind of start out an overall college search process.
Definitely. I would agree with all of that. I think right now, obviously, visiting is very difficult, but just trying to, Rachel mentioned faculty chats that we offer, or our open house, just trying to get involved and hear from as many different people at the colleges that you're applying to. I think that, is really helpful throughout the college search process.
And I think that's one of the few good things about COVID-19 is that prior to this, there weren't that many virtual opportunities to connect with colleges. Right now, the only way really that you can connect with most colleges is virtually. And so it's really your opportunity to learn more about colleges without having to pay to go and visit them in person. So I know we're all a little bit tired of being on Zoom and things like that, but I really want to encourage everyone to kind of step in and really take advantage of those virtual opportunities where you're able to learn about schools and not have to leave your couch or, you know, your pajamas or whatever it is.
Great point, Rachel. I think that is the perfect ending point as well.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for sharing about Agnes Scott. And you give some great advice generally about going about the search too. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to those of you who have joined us today. We really appreciate you being here to learn. When you close your window, there will be a quick link or a link to a quick survey, just 4 questions. We really appreciate you providing your feedback there. And as I mentioned before, this is just one of many sessions as part of this CTCL Virtual Days event. So come back, sign up for others. And in about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as recordings of all of the other presentations online too. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again to our presenters. Have a great day, everybody.